Welcome back to Fast Market here on the Schwab Network. It's time for cash tags. For that, let's bring in our next guest. That's Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Megan.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Megan. It's been a dismal couple days here. TTD is down another 2% today after falling nearly 33% yesterday. I was just looking through, some of the comments from the CEO, and he said it wasn't due to macro environment. It was due to internal reorganizations of sales and engineering teams that led to the miss in revenue for the quarter. But the market doesn't care. It's pounding the stock. What kind of data are you guys seeing after this fall?
Yeah, whenever we saw this report come through, I think this was shocking even for us to see. In hindsight, 2020, whenever you look at some of the data, but at large, this was a company that had executed extremely well for several years. This was its first big revenue miss, I think, in 33 quarters is what I've been looking at. And so if you listen to the earnings call, you mentioned what the CEO said. I listened to the call. It sounded like a bit of a scramble. And so I think that was a little bit concerning. There were a couple of big points that we keyed into. The first is that the adoption of its, AI ad buying platform, its Kokai platform, it was slower than anticipated. So I think that this rollout, either it wasn't planned well, they didn't get the buy-in from the advertisers as expected, but either way, this was an execution that could have gone better. And then CEO also mentioned a reshuffling, I think was the term that he used, of his teams in the month of December. And if you look at the web data chart, which is for us what we like to look at, this for us tells us what forward-looking ad interest may look like for the trade desk. You can see a pretty significant dip in December and a pretty sharp change in trajectory. And that actually dips to almost nearly negative 30% on a year-over-year basis. So definitely a loss of momentum during this reshuffling that the CEO mentioned. But I will say the light at the end of the tunnel, if you can pull a positive data point for long-term investors, especially as you can see some return to positive momentum in January. We are now in the green. We've got consumer interest up by about 4% year over year. So I think from a macro perspective, our long-term bullish thesis on the trade desk hasn't changed. We still think that the company is in an excellent position thanks to its partnerships and positioning in the open internet and advertising, specifically its exposure to connected TV, to capitalize on growth well into the future, but certainly a pretty big execution fumble this last quarter.
Yeah, Megan, the business model for this company looks solid, right? With where the advertising world is headed, a middleman, which it seems like the role that they play, seems like perfect for organizing digital advertising. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I don't know how to pronounce it. Kokai, their new platform. It sounds like it's reducing customer acquisition by 80%. So even though they may be fumbling this rollout and fumbling the overall execution, it sounds like long-term, like 2025, 2026, it's going to be better for this company if they decrease the expenses or the acquisition costs by that much, Megan.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that this concept of AI-driven ad buying and the ability to target on a massive scale across several platforms, this is the bullish thesis for the trade desk. And this is why this is a company for us. It's one of our core conviction stocks. It's one of the long-term holds that we have in our portfolio. And our ultimate thesis hasn't changed, but definitely a big execution miss on the side of the company. This is one where we'll continue to watch those web metrics. I think that chart in hindsight was very, very telling. When you see that massive dip, that was pretty non-characteristic of a company that had been growing and executing on all fronts. But, if you listen to the call, the CEO, while scrambling, he certainly owned all of the misses and the reasoning for behind, what slipped through the cracks. And I think that long term, this is still a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous play on the shift in advertising dollars to connected TV, the shift in advertising dollars on the open internet at large. And so this is one for us that we've certainly got a close eye on it. It was a bit of a concerning quarter, but we're starting to look at this more from a long-term lens. We'd like to see a couple more months of continued traction just to make sure that the pain is behind the trade desk. But it's nice to see that initial, a bit better look whenever it comes to some growth and some traction in the digital web traffic.
Then you look at Roku popping about 13% today post their earnings result. They've got a partnership, data-driven TV streaming partnership at this point. Does that lend some support to your data here also moving forward that, hey, maybe this just was a blip for one quarter, but the analyst community came out hammering the stock, cutting price targets across the board, downgrades. Megan, so is this more of a longer term outlook for you guys that it's going to rebound?
Yeah, this certainly is for us. And I think that the partnerships that you mentioned, like the one that the Trade Desk has with Roku, whenever you go through its list of platform partners, you've got Netflix, you've got Spotify, you've got lots of these really, really big names and places where advertisers are certainly want to buy up that ad space to place content in front of viewer eyeballs. So I think that the long-term growth runway is still certainly there. Near-term may be a bit more volatile until the Trade Desk can prove that it has some of those struggles behind it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the analysts are going to come out and say you got to buy the dip on this. I haven't seen that yet, but we'll wait and see on that. Great stuff, great data. As always, Megan, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
That's Megan Brantley, VP of Research at LikeFolio, joining us. They still like it, Kevin.